Welcome to the Permanent Change of Station podcast, a place where friends can come together, agree or disagree, and still be friends. Join attorney and Forever Miss Oregon, Lynette Perez, each week as she covers such topics as law, relationships, faith, and current events. No matter the issue, Lynette believes it's time for a permanent change of station.
Good morning, this is Lynette Perez, and you're listening to the Permanent Change of Station, a place where friends can come together on any topic, agree or disagree, and we can still be friends. Well, this morning may be one of those times we may have to agree to disagree and still be friends, and that I want to just share my thoughts on the whole Uvalde shooting situation. This is very close and near and dear to me in that I have many friends who live in Uvalde. I am a Texan. My hometown is San Antonio. The first decade of my legal career before I moved to Arkansas, I worked as a child welfare and criminal lawyer in South Texas, and Uvalde County was one of the many counties in South Texas in which I appeared on behalf of children in the courts of that county. I know the judges. I have actually been inside Robb Elementary School many times myself. I even looked on my Google Calendar. I just did a search just to confirm that I had in fact been there, and I had, and that I was often appointed to be an attorney and guardian ad litem in CPS cases for children in that county or whose foster placement might be in that county, and they attended Robb Elementary School. And so it is a place that I have walked the halls myself. None of the children that I have represented are still students at that school. It's been a few years, and they have moved on to middle school and high school. And so no one that I personally knew was in attendance last Tuesday, but for the grace of God, I say the last few days as I've done my walks, I have just reflected on how often we may be in places that we don't even know the danger that we may be in, or someone may be thinking of inflicting danger in places we might be. And like I said, it's a place I've been. And so it's just really heartbreaking to me to know that in hallways that I personally have walked, that such terror took place and that so many lives were lost at Robb Elementary School in a county that I have spent much time in as a lawyer. And some of the thoughts that I want to share in no particular order come from my work as being a lawyer. And I want to just say, not that it's relevant or irrelevant, but I am a registered Republican, have been for years. I voted for Ronald Reagan. I have been elected in 2 states as a Republican candidate, both in Nevada as well as in Texas. I have been elected a school board trustee in Texas. I've served as the District 7 trustee and the board secretary of the Judson Independent School District. And so I have that vantage point as well. I'm someone who, as an assistant city manager in Las Vegas, worked with the GSA, the Government Services Administration, on helping design the first federal courthouse that was designed after the Oklahoma City bombing. And that was the Las Vegas Federal Lloyd George Courthouse, was the very first federal courthouse designed post Oklahoma City bombing, and I was involved in the design of that. And so I have many unique vantage points that I bring to this conversation. And so anyone who will hear what I have to say and, wants to say you're rhino or whatever the case may be, show me your credentials in this conversation, okay? And then before you can say anything in response, show me your credentials. Otherwise, sit down, listen, because I have some information I think that would be helpful to this conversation. First point, the days of just saying we can't do anything, okay, whether that is Congress or whomever or you listener, those days are over. We can't go from Sandy Hook to Uvalde and take this attitude, oh, we can't do anything because it's going to affect law-abiding citizens. No, because law-abiding citizens are not the perpetrators of these criminal acts. Okay, so first of all, calm down. There's nothing that I would ever propose as a law-abiding citizen and as a felony prosecutor to say that, oh, we need to create something to now take away the rights of law-abiding citizens. No one is interested in that. I personally have written law review articles on the Second Amendment, yet another one of my bona fides this morning. And so sit down, calm down if you think that's where I'm coming from. But today, one of the hats I wear as a felony prosecutor is that I am the mental health prosecutor for the jurisdiction in which I prosecute criminal acts. I can tell you that every week I go into what is the probate court of the 17th Judicial District in Arkansas, and at minimum, there are 2 people, usually 3 people, on the mental health docket to be involuntarily committed, in which a petition has been filed, typically by a member of the family. They have been assessed, and there is an expert witness on the stand as one of my witnesses being called by the state, who has examined this person and who is testifying to the judge and saying that this person is a danger to themselves, a danger to others, and needs to be involuntarily having their liberties removed from them and involuntarily committed. Now, in those scenarios, that individual there is a court order placing that person in either a state mental health hospital or a mental health inpatient facility where they are ordered to have care. Anyone who has received that kind of order has been, at least in Arkansas, is entered into a database in which when they go, if they go again to try to purchase a firearm, try to purchase ammunition, the bells and whistles go off. They're not able to. They are also in the database in that even if they were to obtain a weapon illegally, and even on things like a traffic stop or any type of situation that law enforcement interacts with them, their name will come up as someone who should not have a firearm. And so if police are doing a search incident to arrest and there is a firearm, again, that is something that law enforcement can immediately take action on. Now, one of the things that I have noticed, and just over the last, couple of, within the last 2 weeks, because this Buffalo shooting, as well as this Uvalde shooting, were within close proximity to one another. Both the Buffalo shooter as well as the Uvalde shooter had this in common. They both had a history of posting about animal cruelty, or they have had those type of offenses in their background. It is my position that one of the things that should happen We already have federal laws on the books today that deal with domestic violence. So if you have had a domestic violence conviction, whether it be a misdemeanor or a felony, or you are the subject of a domestic violence related protective order, which again, a judge has had a hearing, they've heard the evidence, they signed the order, and you can't, because of domestic violence, be within 250 feet of a person's home, their work. You can't contact them telephonically, email, text, whatever. So you have a protective order against you. The law is already on the books that you cannot own firearms. Okay? We need to add the offenses of animal cruelty to the type of offenses that if you have one, whether as a juvenile or as an adult, those offenses are added to the type of offenses that would bar one from being able to own a firearm. That is one thing. We need to make sure that in all of these systems that already exist, whether it be through domestic violence or if we have the mental health component, and then if we can add the animal abuse component, that all of those have systems in place that those get reported into all databases of law enforcement, your local police agency, your state police agency, Border Patrol, Homeland Security, FBI, all of law enforcement needs to have access to that information. It needs to be ACIC, NCIC, Google it. But pretty much those are law enforcement databases that law enforcement uses on a daily, hourly, minute by minute basis to look up criminal history and what's, whether people have outstanding warrants, all of that are utilized. I believe that we also need to raise the legal age to be able to acquire these, long arm weapons, AR-15s, those type of assault weapons. You need to be at least 21 years old, and there needs to be a waiting period so that proper background checks can be done. Lastly, my final point is that, okay, we're all saying there's a mental health problem. I don't disagree. I'm like I said, a prosecutor appearing in court weekly on mental health type hearings. In San Antonio, there are entire dockets devoted to mental health defendants. So yes, we do in America have a serious mental health problem. We need to make sure that we are not slashing mental health in our state funding and our state budgets, and then be shocked that all these crazy folk are now accessing weapons and that there's no interaction with them and psychiatrists and psychologists who also should have the ability to report to law enforcement any threats that they hear without fear of being sued by someone. There needs to be indemnification for psychologists and psychiatrists who, yes, they have, confidentiality. That's very important. But again, if they're hearing in their psychiatry or psychology session things that they as professionals believe are imminent threats to the community, then they should be allowed, and in some states they are allowed, to be able to report immediately to law enforcement without fear of being sued for having released that information. There needs to be state laws in place to protect the mental health professionals who do report these dangerous individuals to law enforcement. And so, again, my heart goes out to all the families and the entire community of Uvalde. But for me, again, when this offense went down, which was on a Tuesday, was the exact day that many of us were going to the polls. I know in Arkansas, it was a day that I was voting in the Republican primary. And I voted for people who are in a position, they are incumbents right now in Congress. Mr. Boozman, Mr. Hill are my representatives in Congress. And if you want my vote in November, and again, I'm a registered Republican, I'm not just going to blindly vote for you. I want to see what you're proposing and what actions you're going to take between now and November to ensure that something like this is not going to happen in the schools in our community. Yes, we all are entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so are all of those victims. They were entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as well. And the days of saying that, oh, this is just a sin problem, or we can't do anything, it's going to hurt all the law-abiding people. I'm not buying that, and I'm not accepting that. And so, again, I hope that our school police, our local law enforcement take heed of what happened and that they figure out what they need to do to ensure that what happened in Uvalde in this late police response never happens anywhere else in America. And again, I pray that our elected officials do not sit on the sidelines, do not make excuses, and come up with some reasonable ideas as to, sorry about this, the allergies have been getting the best of me, but some reasonable ideas to make a difference and to start changing this sad statistic. This is Lynette Perez with Permanent Change of Station, a place where friends can come together on any topic, including gun issues, agree or disagree, and still be friends. Take care.
You've been listening to Permanent Change of Station. Tune in each week for the latest episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your podcasts. You can find PCS Podcast online at pcspodcast.live and on social media. And while you're at it, don't forget to rate, subscribe, and leave a review. This helps others find the show, and we really appreciate it. We'll catch you in the next episode.